Now, the Green New Deal, as it's termed, is something that I think we really need to do. As the resolution presented by Ed Markey and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, it's great in the sense that it's, lays out a lot of different things and different areas that we need to concentrate on to at least, if not completely solve, then at least try and tackle the problem of climate change before it's too late. But I wish it would go deeper into more particulars. And, well, aside from leave out Medicare for all and other things that I don't think, because Green New Deal, at least the way I think it should only encompass like energy, environmental change. So, for instance, one of the major pushes should be renewable energy development, just period. I don't think that that's all it should be. I mean, that should be a pretty major percentage or chunk of it, the Green New Deal, or whatever plan, however you want to label it. I just think the Green New Deal is just a far better name for everything. But one of the major areas of it should be renewable energy development, like today. It should have been yesterday, but, we're not going to do shit, at least for the next year and a half. But really, that should have been the major parts laid out by the Green New Deal in the resolution anyway. Now, again, it's a resolution. Everyone's going around acting like, oh my God, they're going to vote on it tomorrow, and we're not going to have fucking cows, and we're not going to have cars anymore, and the airplanes are going to be grounded forever. Oh, shut up. Fucking assholes. But, I do wish that they would have been like, okay, and then we all know solar and wind. Those are the two majors that are already out and about and getting better all the time. But really, there should have been mentions at least of other possibilities. Like my thing, and this thing, and this particular one hasn't really been looked into. Or I mean, it's kind of looked into. If you look it up, it's called geothermal. Now, there's two types. There's the geothermal, which I'm not going to talk about, which involves more or less heating and cooling for your house. And even that one, it's not meant for people in like real tight grouped urban areas because it requires like you have a good piece of land around it and you're able to dig that land up and like put these weird tubular things, these weird like loops, about 30 or so feet in the ground. Maybe, I forget the exact dimensions, but it's like where you put a big array of these things on a quarter-acre size piece of land, and you dig down 30 feet, and it's a loop. And in this loop of tubing, you're going to have coolant that it goes to. Anyway, the point of it being is that it's a small-scale thing to just involve heating and cooling for your personal property. That I'm not talking about. Now, it's a good idea to be pursued on your own or, in a certain setting or with certain like semi-rule to rule properties. But when it comes to like geothermal that I'm talking about, we dig down miles, long fucking way down, hopefully 5 or 6 miles or so. And what happens is when you get down that far, the temperature of the earth starts to get higher. And even to the point of boiling water. So if you have a loop or a system, it's not going to be a loop because that's kind of hard to do that far down. But some basic principle or some basic concepts involve having one major drilling hole down, and then around that you will drill other holes where it allows the steam to come back up. And at the surface level of all those holes around the main one, because the main one, you're sending down water. You get it to an area down below about 5-6 miles where you're going to have the temperature hot enough to where once that water goes down, it pools up in a reservoir. And then it gets hot enough to where it starts letting off steam. It gets boiled, essentially. And it'll come up some of these other tubes around it. And once these tubes get to surface level, they will be attached to turbines. Now, from what I can tell, the turbine technology is good, but not good enough or efficient enough to make the temperature that it would come back up to the surface to turn the turbine enough, and so on and so forth. So that would be one area where you'd have to get that fixed and developed. But just the concept alone of being able to drill down, and instead of fracking the earth to get out oil and gas, you'd actually just drill down to hot, dry rock, send water down, just plain old water, not with any crazy chemicals. At least I wouldn't be down with anything with crazy chemicals in it. And it comes back up as steam. That steam turns turbines. Those turbines create electricity. And if you got a good enough system going, you can end up doing this thing constantly. Because the problem ends up being with solar and wind that while even with the best technologies as far as battery storage and all that stuff combined, and even a new smart grid, you're still going to need a source of power that's constant, that'll make it, run all day, every day. And that those other sources just sort of are a major supplemental part of it when there's peak times and that sort of thing. So I hope that we can get this one or that particular renewable energy down pat real soon. Because then another part of the Green New Deal should be, because even if we can't change around the climate in a pretty short period of time, or it might not even happen on the scale we'd like for it to happen, the place where I live and other places in the American Southwest, see, I live in Southern California, but not just here, but all sorts of other places, we're going to run out of water, or at least water is going to be really hard to come by. So we're going to need to generate a shitload of electricity and energy from these renewable sources. And my plan would be, over time, what we do with that energy is we desalinate water here, because we're near the coast. There's all that water available to us. So we desalinate that water and we use it in Southern California, right at the source where it's happening. But then we also pipe it out to other states like Nevada, Arizona, Utah, New Mexico, even Texas. But then Texas at some point can do its own desalination off the Gulf Coast. And then imagine that. We have pipelines, and instead of putting oil and gas throughout this country, we put water, a far better commodity and much more needed resource for people. Now, I just hope that the Green New Deal does evolve into something along those lines, and it focuses primarily on that energy and certain other infrastructure projects around water primarily. That those are the things that are going to need to be alleviated, or the suffering caused by climate change. That's the way to alleviate it the best, I think. And I feel if it goes too far into Medicare, it is mentioned Medicare for all in it. And I'm like, what are you doing? Just cut that out, put that as its own standalone bill. Let's get that shit passed all on its own. And the Green New Deal should involve energy production and certain infrastructure projects centered around alleviating climate change. Now, another one that they put in, which I think shouldn't be involved, is high-speed rail. That should also be its own. That should be part of an infrastructure deal, long-term, multi-year infrastructure plan, which I'll get to later in another video. But just to touch on it a little bit, my plan would be a high-speed rail system where the nationwide one, the federally funded one, or the one that's primarily that one does major cities along the way. And even sometimes it might skip it. Like when you start to get to the eastern seaboard, those cities are a little too close together in order to go to every single major one. That one I would start skipping certain cities. But say when you get to the Midwest and the western states, the distance between major cities is huge. Huge. So you can easily go from LA, Vegas, Albuquerque, or Vegas to Salt Lake City, and Reno to Salt Lake City, and different places like that, right? All of it underground. Don't do a goddamn bit of it above ground. Because as we saw with our fucking stupid state, these assholes went about blowing $60 billion. We ain't built shit yet. And it's because they tried to do it above ground, where they wanted to take people's land or negotiate with farmers And they're like, no, you're going to fucking destroy my fields for your stupid train. What are you doing? That thing should have been underground from day one. Because then, all right, yeah, it's not like underground. You don't have to worry about shit anymore. But it's just the people that own the land above ground, not all of them have mineral rights. And even if they do, or the ones with the rights that go down below the surface that you have to worry about negotiating with them, the point is, even if they do, the negotiation for, hey, we're going to run trains underneath your ground, and it's not going to, they're going to run them deep enough to where they're not going to affect your crops or the roots of trees or any of that other shit that you're going to need to worry about. It's going to be deep enough to where it's, nothing you even worry about or need, or it doesn't affect you at all. And they go, oh, okay, not so bad. Whereas this one, we had to take over all their land, have right-of-ways, and make it so that we chop these huge trenches to drop the train down under. Like, what are we doing? And so now it became a huge boondoggle. That's why I hope the whole thing's nationwide is underground. Major stops. It does freight, too, so that is a way to help pay for it all. And the in-between, so it'll look like a big web with a lot of different open spaces in between the major cities. And then that's where you have regional transportation setups where they're not necessarily, those ones don't necessarily need to be below ground. They can be, they can't be, or I mean, they could or they couldn't be, whichever, however it works out. But those will be primarily funded by the different regions, whether it's in an entire state within itself. Like one, because I live in Southern California, that would be all of LA, Orange, Riverside, San Bernardino County, and they'll have their own network. And my plan would be for an area like ours that already has freeways galore, put the goddamn train right down the middle of every freeway. Done. All the stops will be where the exits are. Hello? It's a pretty easy one already. Now, not everyone has that set up already, but guess what? What will happen is that regional transportation system won't necessarily need to be super high speed, but it'll ensure that there's continuity throughout. Now, you're not going to be able to get dropped off right by your house. So we have to develop park and ride situation. All right. So now I'm getting off completely on another different topic, which would be infrastructure. But that would be one thing I would like to have separated, but it does represent a part of what the Green New Deal would inspire, so to speak. Because you want to have a transportation system that, covers a lot of freight and mid to low cost nationwide transportation, and that it's not going to take days on end. It'll take a day to go from, say, LA to New York or Florida to Washington, that kind of thing. And let's hope that works out one day. As we know that there's going to be a ton of pushback from bullshitters all over that are like, nah, it's too much. These fucking no idea having assholes. And they're everywhere. And they're for every single thing that we're trying to do to help out this country and the working class. And, it's never going to stop. So you're going to need to elect people like me that ain't going to take shit from them. I'm sick and tired of them. I'm not fucking taking any more of their shit. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, okay, well, let's compromise. Let's work out a deal. Why? They've got no ideas to offer for people of this country, the working class in particular. So, fuck off.